The morning studio of ITV's Lorraine buzzed with the usual excitement, cameras being adjusted, assistants whispering into earpieces, and Lorraine Kelly reviewing her cue cards with her signature calm smile. She was known for her warmth, her ability to make even the most guarded guests open up on air. But today was different. Today, her guest was Petula Clark, the legendary singer of Downtown, a woman whose charm had lit up stages for decades. Petula, at 92, still carried herself like the grand dame of British pop. Her platinum hair was perfectly set, her blue eyes sparkled with mischief, and she walked into the studio with an aura that made everyone straighten up. She had agreed to appear live to promote her new memoir, Still Downtown, a reflection on fame, loss, and resilience. But beneath the polite smiles and rehearsed greetings, there was tension in the air. Lorraine, sipping her tea backstage before going live, had just been handed a note from her producer. Ask about her feud with the BBC executives, it's trending. Lorraine frowned. She preferred to keep her interviews light and friendly, but she also knew what made television tick. Ratings mattered. 3 minutes till we're live. The floor manager shouted. Petula adjusted her pearl necklace and took her seat opposite Lorraine. Cameras rolled. The opening music faded. Good morning. You're watching Lorraine, and joining me today is the one and only Petula Clark, music icon, national treasure, and now author of a brand new memoir. Lorraine said cheerfully. The audience applauded. Petula smiled graciously. Thank you, Lorraine, she said, her voice still musical despite her age. It's lovely to be here. For the first few minutes, the conversation flowed smoothly. They talked about her early career, her time performing for the troops during the war, her life in France, and the revival of Downtown on TikTok. But then Lorraine glanced at her cue card, the one with the bold print note from her producer. She hesitated, then asked, Petula, you've been very candid in your book about some difficult experiences in the industry, particularly your falling out with certain BBC executives in the 70s. Would you say those old wounds have healed? Petula's smile froze. The air changed instantly. I didn't come here to rehash that nonsense, she said sharply. I've spoken my truth in the book. If people can't read, that's not my fault. Lorraine blinked, caught off guard. Of course, but I think a lot of viewers would be curious. Curious about what? About how I was treated unfairly for speaking my mind. Or how I was blacklisted for standing up for other women. The BBC doesn't want to talk about that, does it? The audience murmured. Lorraine tried to regain control. Petula, I completely respect your experience. I just think it's important too. Important to stir the pot, you mean? Petula interrupted, her voice rising. You journalists love that. I'm here to talk about my music, not about decades-old politics. Lorraine's pleasant smile faltered. She wasn't used to confrontation, certainly not from national treasures. We don't mean to stir anything, Petula, honestly. Then perhaps you should read the book instead of asking leading questions, Petula snapped. The studio went silent. Even the cameramen exchanged nervous looks. Lorraine exhaled slowly. All right, she said, forcing a polite smile. Let's talk about your upcoming tour instead. But Petula wasn't finished. You know, Lorraine, I've been on television longer than most people in this building have been alive. I've seen it all, the charm, the fakery, the pretense. You invite people on to celebrate their lives, and then you dig for dirt the moment the cameras start rolling. Petula, that's not fair, Lorraine said, her tone tightening. Oh, it's perfectly fair, Petula said coldly. You might be Scotland's sweetheart, but you're not as sweet as you pretend. A gasp rippled through the small live audience. Lorraine looked stunned, her hands frozen on the desk. The producer's voice crackled into her earpiece. Go to break. Go to break. Lorraine forced a strained laugh. We'll just take a quick break. Stay with us, she said, turning to the camera. The moment the red light turned off, Petula stood up, brushing invisible dust from her skirt. I think I've said enough, she muttered. Petula, please, Lorraine said, standing too. We can smooth this out. Live TV gets messy sometimes. I don't do messy, Petula replied. Not anymore. And with that, she strode off the set, leaving the crew scrambling and Lorraine speechless. By the time the show resumed, social media was already on fire. Clips of the exchange flooded X and TikTok. #PetulaVs Lorraine shot to the top of the trending list. Comments ranged from, "Legend speaks her truth," to, "Lorraine didn't deserve that." In the control room, Lorraine's producer groaned. "We're going to need damage control. This'll be on every tabloid by noon." Lorraine, back on camera, smiled thinly as she introduced the next segment about home decor, but her mind wasn't on curtains or colors. She knew the headlines were already being written. And Petula Clark, for better or worse, had just made television history. By noon, every entertainment outlet in Britain was buzzing with headlines. Petula Clark storms off Lorraine's set after on-air row. Lorraine Kelly left shaken after clash with music legend. Iconic meltdown. Petula vs. Lorraine goes viral. Clips of the argument were everywhere, replayed, slowed down, dissected frame by frame. Some called Petula brave, others rude, and a few simply couldn't believe that a woman who once sang, "Don't sleep in the subway," had just called Lorraine Kelly fake on live television. In her Kensington flat, Petula sat by the window, sipping her tea. She had turned off her phone, but the constant vibration from incoming messages buzzed on the table like an angry wasp. Her agent, her publisher, and even old friends were all trying to reach her. She wasn't sorry, not yet. She'd lived too long to care about being cancelled. But as she looked out at the rainy London streets, she felt a quiet ache. Had she gone too far? Meanwhile, at ITV headquarters, the mood was tense. Lorraine was in her dressing room, sitting silently while her producer, Mark, stood nearby reading online comments. "Public split right down the middle," he said grimly. "Half are calling Petula a hero for standing up to shallow journalism, and the other half think you were ambushed." Lorraine sighed. "I wasn't trying to ambush her. I just asked one question." She exploded. "I know that, but the clip's everywhere now. You've got tabloids calling, BBC Radio wants a statement, and the network's PR team says we need to stay calm. No statements, no tweets, no responses, yet." Lorraine rubbed her forehead. 30 years on air, Mark. 30 years of kindness, of trying to make people feel safe, and now I'm the villain because I asked about her book. Mark gave a small, helpless shrug. "That's the internet for you." That evening, Petula finally answered a call. It was her granddaughter, Lucy, a 27-year-old journalist. "Gran, what happened?" Lucy asked. "Everyone's talking about it." Petula gave a dismissive laugh. "Oh, the usual. I said what I thought, and the world melted." "Gran, you looked angry. People are saying you were disrespectful." "Lorraine's been crying on air this afternoon." Petula blinked. "Crying?" "Yeah. She did a small segment after lunch, saying she was deeply saddened by what happened. She didn't say your name, but everyone knew." Petula felt her stomach tighten. "She's milking it," she muttered, though her voice lacked conviction. "Gran, you taught me to stand up for myself," Lucy said gently. "But you also taught me to apologize when I cross a line. Maybe you should call her." Petula stared at the phone in silence after Lucy hung up. Her pride said no, but something heavier, guilt, maybe, pressed on her chest. The next morning, the tabloids had fresh fuel. Someone had leaked behind-the-scenes audio, the moment Petula called Lorraine, "pretend sweet." The leak reignited the storm. Even celebrities began weighing in online. Graham Norton tweeted, "Legends deserve respect, but kindness works both ways." Singer Lulu wrote, "Petula's fire is unmatched, but sometimes fire burns the wrong bridge." Petula frowned at her screen. She'd never cared for social media drama, but now, her name was everywhere. And for the first time in decades, it wasn't because of her music. Her phone rang again. This time, it was Mark, Lorraine's producer. "Petula, Lorraine asked me to call," he said carefully. "We're airing a follow-up tomorrow. She wants to set the record straight, not a fight, just clarity. If you'd like to make a brief statement or appear live again, she's open to it." Petula was silent for a moment. Then she asked, "She's giving me a chance to come back?" "Yes. But she's leaving it up to you." Petula's eyes softened. "Tell her, I'll think about it." That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed every moment of that morning, her sharp tone, Lorraine's face tightening, the awkward silence. She remembered how Lorraine had smiled at her backstage, offering biscuits and tea. Had she mistaken kindness for condescension? Or was she just tired of being treated like a relic? At 5 a.m., Petula sat down at her grand piano, her fingers trembling as they pressed the first keys of Downtown. The melody filled the quiet room, fragile and familiar. When she finished, she reached for her phone and typed a message. Greater than, Lorraine, I'm sorry. I was defensive, and it wasn't fair to take it out on you. If you'd still like to talk, I'll come back, Petula. She hit send. The next morning's Lorraine show opened with a surprise. Lorraine sat alone on the sofa, smiling softly. Before we begin, she said, I'd like to share something. She looked straight at the camera. Yesterday's interview with Petula Clark didn't go as planned. Live television can be unpredictable, and emotions sometimes run high. But I've just received a message from Petula, and I want everyone to know, we've spoken this morning, and we're good. She paused. Petula will be joining us again, next week. The audience applauded. When Petula returned a week later, the atmosphere was completely different. Lorraine greeted her warmly, and this time, Petula leaned in first for the hug. They laughed, reminisced, even sang a few bars of Downtown, Together Live on Air. It was a small moment, two women from different eras finding mutual respect in front of millions. And when the cameras stopped rolling, Petula whispered to Lorraine, thank you for giving me a second chance. Lorraine smiled. Thank you for reminding me why I love live TV. The world moved on, but that morning, something rare had happened, a real reconciliation, unscripted and human. For the first time in weeks, Petula Clark felt at peace. The world might remember the clash, but she knew the ending mattered more than the explosion. And as she stepped out of the studio, the audience humming, Downtown, behind her, Petula smiled. She hadn't been kicked off anymore, she'd walked back in on her own terms.